Today's talk is about graduate opportunities and career prospects in Europe. And to share his insights, we have former convener of IEEE NITK, who has finished his master's at TU Delft and is currently pursuing his professional doctorate in engineering at TU Eindhoven. He has been a research intern at IIT Madras and the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Anand, it is with immense pleasure that we are hosting you today. Can you please introduce yourself to the crowd?
Hi, Karthik. Thanks a lot for the really warm and kind introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Anand Thamban. I shall share my screen and maybe give you start off with my presentation. Um, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Perfect. So again, good evening, everyone. My name is Anand Thamban, and today I would like to talk to you about the different graduate opportunities you have in continental Europe, and what are the opportunities after that in industry or academia. So today I would like to give you, I'd like to start off with a brief introduction about myself, about what I've done. Then I'll speak about why Europe is a prospective choice for your future in comparison to, let's say, the US or Australia or Canada. What are the different opportunities you have in Europe in terms of master's courses? And what can you do after that? What are your options after your master's? So I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering at NITK. I graduated around 2 years ago. As Karthik mentioned, I was a member of IEEE NITK as well. And towards the end of my bachelor's, I realized I wanted to do something with energy. So I decided to enroll myself at TU Delft in the energy and process technology course, the process technology track. But of course, the good things about Europe is you're not really very specific to what you study, so you start exploring a lot of other fields and opportunities. And I started getting interest towards building physics and energy in buildings. So I started to do well. I did a few internships at TNO, that is the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research. I did some experimental and numerical modeling, and for my master thesis, I actually worked with the architecture faculty and the mechanical engineering faculty and with the company to do a quite multidisciplinary topic in which a CFD simulation to analyze the infiltration in buildings using LES, large area simulations, and airflow network models. So that's that. The reason I want to really specify on what I've worked is to highlight how really flexible your master's is in terms of doing a lot of interdisciplinary work, which I think is really good about in the Netherlands, I would say. I'm not really sure how it is in the other European countries, but of course, this is something you can look into in their coursework. Currently, I'm doing my PDEng. It's a professional doctorate in engineering in smart buildings and cities. So that's a postgraduate diploma offered only in the Netherlands. It's quite an interesting career choice as opposed to a PhD. I will, of course, explain further about this towards the end of my talk. What I'm currently working on is the fault detection and diagnosis of the low DT syndrome in the cooling coils of air handling units. It's quite a complex topic, I would say, something which we don't really come across in India. But this is something more of in mechanically ventilated buildings, hospitals, big mega power plants, etc. So this is quite interesting because it's not just I would say core mechanical engineering. It is quite multidisciplinary in terms of I'm using data analytics, machine learning, and building energy and performance simulations, most of which I actually learned during my master's, and extra courses, of course, outside of my master's program. So that way, I think this is a very nice experience for me. So why exactly Europe? A lot of us, especially when I was doing my bachelor's, a lot of my peers wanted to go to the US because of the opportunities available there. Um, but at least since the past 4 years, in terms of the administration, a lot of people were looking into other opportunities to come to Europe. In fact, I know a lot of people from NITK themselves who came to Europe for their masters. Uh, in Europe, you have a better quality of life and a really good work-life balance. You don't have to work as much as you would, let's say, in India or the US. You have to just work 40 hours a week. This is not restrictive to just your, I would say, um, your, let's say, when you work in as a PhD or a PDEng or industry, you can of course limit this work-life balance to your studies as well. But you can obviously exceed it. That's your own personal choice. But that balance is always regulated and controlled, so that's always nice. You can travel within the Schengen area and the EEA area, which includes Norway, uh, uh, Iceland, and these countries. So that's also quite nice to do during your 2 years, and of course after that. The master's program in Europe is more research oriented, which means you would have to do a thesis in most of the courses. The thesis would uh, range from about 6 months to 1 year, and sometimes can take longer. It depends on the kind of work you want to do, the research output that you want to get. So the periods are quite flexible as well. In the Netherlands, I know that uh, you don't have a minimum period. Usually, master's courses are designed for 2 years. People can, of course, finish it earlier. I myself finished it in less than 2 years, in around 21 months. And you can obviously extend it for 3 years if you wish to take up more courses or do a double masters or extra projects and stuff like that. So it's very much more research oriented with a thesis. And of course, you have different cultures to experience. It's Europe is it's big, but the countries are quite small. So you travel to different countries, you have a lot of things to see, a lot of things to experience, a lot of people to meet, I would say. So that is quite nice. One big disadvantage, which I think uh, I wouldn't say prohibits, but which hinders a lot of students from applying to universities in the Europe is you might need to learn the local language, especially if you want to stay after and look for jobs. This is the case in most of the southern and eastern European countries, but maybe not the northern countries. People are more flexible in terms of accepting you in a company and stuff like that, and they can speak English quite well, so that's nice. But this is one of the biggest reasons I found people don't want to come to Europe. But let's look at that later. So. For your master's degree in Europe, the applications quite vary for each university in each country. It's not like in the US where you have you need a GRE and you need this and that, etc. It usually varies around each country. The general ones include a TOEFL score. In most masters courses are taught in English, so they would need to know your proficiency in English. Although it doesn't really mean if you have a high score, you have a better chance. You just need to meet the cutoff. A CV, a resume, which shows your work experience, your research experience, your internship experience, etc. Your grade card, I think, is one of the most important. In the Netherlands, I know that you just need to meet the criteria of getting a first class. So I think that's a 7 CGPA for NITK. But other countries do look at your CGPA a lot. So I would say it's not very important that if you have if you have a 7.5, you don't get an admit anywhere. But it is important that you do take this into account, especially your GPA for particular courses. Your motivation letter, which I think is quite important as well. You have a 2000 word 2-page limit for a motivation letter for most universities. So that is something compulsory, I would say. And your references as well. GRE is not really asked for. I never had to give my GRE for university applications in Europe, except for some courses. For example, aerospace faculty in TU Delft had a requirement for GRE. So I wouldn't say it's required everywhere, but it's still worth a shot if you're applying to universities in the US to take a GRE, and you can include this in the application. So I would like to talk about the different courses, the different tracks. I'm not going to go much detail into this, but this is just to give you all a good idea of the different kind of tracks you can take up in particular branches. At least in IITs and the universities you have in India, and even some master's courses in Europe, in the US. At least in TU Delft, what I can say is that the master's courses kept changing. They were not the same. They just kept changing and adapting it to the industry requirements of what is there. At least in the 3-4 years I've been there, the courses kept getting restructured, new courses were introduced. So that's quite nice. For example, if you look at civil engineering, let me pointer. Yes. So if you look at civil engineering, you have the normal structural and hydraulic and transport and planning and geosciences. But something which is new to some people in India is building engineering, which encompasses a lot of building physics and building services as well. And CME, that's construction management engineering, which is actually quite common for civil engineering students to take up as a master's choice. Construction management is also available in the US, I think. I'm not really sure about this, but it's also a very popular choice among students. For mechanical, I would say it depends on the university you apply to. Some universities have very niche topics. For example, in TU Delft, we have biomechanical, energy flow and process technology, high-tech engineering, which has to work with semiconductor manufacturing, stuff like that. Multi-machinery, that's with transport and logistics of machinery and equipment in different sites, like for shipping and stuff like that, for road and transportation. And SET is sustainable energy technology. This does not really come into mechanical, but I kept it there because it's quite related to what we learn in mechanical. It encompasses wind, biomass, solar, and some components of electrical engineering as well, like power and storage and stuff like that. So SET itself is a different master's program. It's quite very interdisciplinary, so that's nice. This is just a brief idea of what TU Delft offers. If you look at other universities in TU Eindhoven, you have more of automotive engineering, vehicle engineering, nuclear fusion engineering, and you have lots of other range of courses, which of course you would have to go into each and every specific university. But one thing which is nice is that many of these courses are interrelated. You can take electives from each faculty, each department based on your course, and you can learn a lot of different things. If you look at chemical, the three main tracks are in product engineering, process engineering, and life sciences. This is more of, I would say, it's more a fundamental science with chemistry and biology, and it's very applied science kind of field in terms of chemical engineering. Not something which we really, which I think, well, I don't have a background in chemical engineering, but as far as I know, it's something which you don't really learn in your bachelor's. But I know a lot of friends who have taken up this choice as well. And last but not the least, material science. Well, not last but not least, I think we have a lot of more, but material science is also something important because you learn about the different metals used for construction materials, sustainable materials used for road, for building and stuff like that. And one particular course or field of engineering, which is quite interdisciplinary between architecture, civil engineering, and mechanical engineering, is the built environment. Uh, this is something which I am really interested in and which I'm working for in building physics and services. So you have work with HVAC installations, energy performance of buildings. Then you have smart mobility, which deals with how you work with how the transportation networks in an urban city, and sustainable urban transitions, and smart urban environments and stuff like that, which is quite something new and very, I would say, very normal. It's very specifically designed for the Dutch and for the environment in the Netherlands. One of the very famous courses in TU Delft is the aerospace engineering faculty. You have some courses which are quite common with mechanical engineering, and some students from mechanical engineering take up courses here as well. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, the courses in masters in Europe, at least in TU Delft, many of the courses you can just keep taking it from other faculties. You have aerodynamics, structures, control, flight performance and propulsion, space flight, rotor design, etc. So I just gave you a brief of what is available in the Netherlands. Of course, if you go into this might vary in other European countries, but this is similar. This is kind of the sense of what is available in Europe. A few important tips for people, for students who want to apply. There are many good schools in the EU. For example, you have RWTH, TU Munich, TU Berlin, in France, in Switzerland, in Norway. They're all really good schools, and in terms of quality, I think they're quite good. I would say they're almost in the same level and the same part. But your choice for university should not be made based on the rankings, not based on the QS rankings, but on your course of interest and the employment opportunities in the country, and the kind of research work that's done. The QS rankings are they do give a good insight into the international recognition and that sort of factors, the number of citations, industrial connections, etc. But it's important that you choose a university based on what the courses are and how interesting it is. Don't just blindly follow what your seniors would have done or your friends would have done, and don't just look at the QS rankings. So explore your options. There are really good universities even in Belgium. Some of this which I was not aware of when I was applying, but these are always there. So please do look into that. Do your research very well when you apply for masters. Talk to people on LinkedIn. There will be a lot of students who are currently studying there, and they can really give you a good idea of how the university is, how the courses are, etc. At least that's how I got to make a good choice of what my master's degree would look like and what I would want to study. So it's always important that you connect with the alumni of the university or the students currently studying there. It's nice to have industrial experience, I would say, but it's not always required. You don't really have an edge over anyone else if you have industrial experience. So it's not compulsory. It's always nice to have internships, though. The research and industrial internships count a lot. So that would really help in your application because you have experience in knowing what you actually want to study. So that's good. The last point, that is research assistantships, actually helps in the later phase when you want to apply for a PhD. Then a research assistantship helps a lot in making decision if you want to follow an academic academic with the research career, or you want to get into the industry. So it gives you a good idea if how you want to look about that. So it's always good to do an industrial internship and a research internship and see what do you want to get it. Just do a master's and end up in the industry, or do you want to do a master's and move forward with a PhD? So that's always something I would recommend to all the students to do. In terms of career prospects, I found Europe more attractive than other countries because you have a 1-year search visa to look for jobs and work. A similar kind of incentive is there for students studying in the US as well. But the good thing is you don't have to keep renewing the visa. You don't have to be worried about getting an H-1B or not. If you get a job, you get a contract. It could be a temporary one. It could always be extended to a permanent contract. So that's nice. You have job security. The work-life balance is good in Northern Europe, I would say. I'm not really sure about Southern Europe, but overall, I would say it's quite good. Language barrier can be a barrier in some industries which are very national to the country. For example, in the Netherlands, construction sector is quite national. Some fields of mechanical engineering are quite national, so you would have to learn the language to get jobs here. But in chemical engineering or in structural engineering and stuff like that, language is not a problem. But this trend is slowly dying out. I mean, a lot of internationals are getting jobs. A lot of people are accepting English-speaking employees, so that's quite good, I would say, for the future. And networking is very important through LinkedIn. It's it happens a lot that a lot of people find their jobs and internships through LinkedIn and not by emailing the person. So you can directly approach the director of a company or a manager or someone through LinkedIn and ask for opportunities, and they will get back to you. So make sure our profile is up to date, especially when you're doing your masters and you're looking for jobs or PhDs. So that's an important aspect. A PhD is another direction which you can go through. It usually lasts for around 3 to 4 years. In Norway and Denmark, I think it's 3 years, but usually it's 4 years, at least in the Netherlands. It can go up to 5 years. The good thing about a PhD in Europe, I think at least in the Netherlands, is that you're not a student, but you're an employee of the university. So you have an employment contract, you're employed by the university, you pay tax, and the tax goes to your pension benefits, unemployment benefits, and stuff like that. The benefits of a tax salary is that you get holiday benefits and annual bonus and stuff like that. So it's not like in India where you get a stipend. It's not the same like the US where you get a stipend and a monthly allowance. You do have to teach. You have to sometimes take up RA positions, TA positions and stuff, but it's not compulsory. It depends on the vacancy. Contrary to what's in the US, you can't just apply for a PhD. You have to have vacancies based on the availability of a project. So it usually professors have certain funding available for a particular project, and they roll out vacancies on the websites. So that's how PhDs are generally posted in Europe. So you can always try your luck with emailing a professor to know if there are any possibilities, but it mostly relies on vacancies. Experience in the relevant projects and publications always help, especially in journal publications, etc. It's nice to have a research assistantship experience after your MSc or even after your MTech. It's good to work in let's say in IIT or ISC or whatever. One requirement for a PhD and even the PDEng is that you need to have a master's degree. Direct PhDs from your bachelor's is not accepted, I would say. It's not very common. So someone with a master's degree has an edge over you. So I don't think it's as far as I know, you need a master's degree for a PhD. So that's something to look into if you're applying to Europe. The next is the PDEng. This is the Professional Doctorate in Engineering. That's what I'm doing. And this is a 2-year postmaster program only in the Netherlands. It's affiliated to the British Association of Engineering Doctorates. So it's similar to the EngD, the Engineering Doctorate program in the UK. This program, just like the PhD, is also not you're not a student, but you're employed by the university, so you get the same benefits in terms of salary and tax and pension, a holiday bonus, etc. The main reason for this program to be developed was because in the 80s, the Dutch industries felt that there was a need for technological designers, which master's students actually lack. They really lack the skill of designing products. So this whole program was developed to train master students to have a more design-oriented approach as a technological designer. Of course, with small elements of research, but it's more towards a product development. As a part of this course, you do have a few courses. Most of them are from professional workshops, and they're quite fixed and they're part of the program to train you. you usually work with the company, so it's quite flexible as to how this program is. You can work on a project with the company for 1 year and have some workshops in 1 year, or you can have them together simultaneously throughout both years. Usually work with big companies like Philips, Shell, ASML, or TNO, and there are many more companies, of course, and it depends on the kind of uh, PDEng project you want to PDEng degree you want to work with. This again is not always vacancy oriented. Some PDEng programs, especially TU Delft, are intake oriented, which means that they take a fixed number of students based on the academic qualifications and their grades, which are important, and they allot them projects towards the second year. In some cases, you have vacancies, so companies approach the university with a particular project, and uh, they hire master students to work on this particular project, and that's how it happened in my case. So I applied with the vacancy. So this uh, easily varies for each project, I would say. Even though it's not university specific, even with one particular university, you can have two different ways of hiring a PDEng. Uh, the good the good thing about a PDEng is you have a jump start in your career. You don't really start off as an entry level consultant or engineer. You somewhat come into the middle because of your experience with professional skills and designing and stuff like that. And it's always usually the case that mostly you get hired by the company you work with. It's in most cases, I would say. And it's offered by three universities in TU Delft, TU Eindhoven, and U20. So if after your masters you have at least so this is not really limited to students from Netherlands, it's all over the world. You're in a dilemma of choosing a PhD or a PDEng, then you can know that a PhD is more fundamental oriented. Whatever research that you do can or cannot work. Even if it does not work, it's still a PhD. But a PDEng is more pragmatic. You deliver a product, you design a product from scratch, you develop a business plan, and you develop something for a company which actually works. So, and it's more application oriented, I would say. I really want to focus on this point because many students who, at least in the US, when I was doing my internship there, I found out that a lot of master students end up doing a PhD just because they couldn't find a job, and that's quite common in the US, especially someone working in the core industry. You don't find a job easily, and you just see a PhD opening in your department, and you take it up. You do very in-depth research in a particular field, and then 4 or 5 years later, you end up working as an analyst in a bank or something. So a PhD is quite important. It's very research oriented. It should not be taken just for the sake of a degree. So if you have the need or the feeling that you want to study more, but more uh, towards an industrial career, then a PDEng is the right choice for you. So the points to take home, I would say, are choose your university for master's education wisely. I would not just look into the rankings. I mean, they do matter, but it's important to look at the country which you want to study in. What are the opportunities available? How the employment situation is, and what are your prospects? How easy is it for you to get a job? And all of this you have to all this information you can get through by connecting with students currently studying in the universities. If you're not really sure about a master's, if you think that yeah, I want to do it, but I don't know if I should do it now, please don't jump into it. It's always better to work in the industry and see if you like it. I know a lot of people who said about talking about masters, but when they got a job, they pretty much enjoyed it and they didn't really want to do a master's. It does not really guarantee you a better job. A master's, you can pretty much just get in a nice decent job with the bachelor's, and you would have a good career with that as well. So do work in the industry. If you feel like you need to do a master's, then please consider it. If you're planning to stay in Europe, if you want to study in Europe and then look for a job and settle in Europe, at least uh, I would say for the 5, 10, 15 years, then please do take a serious effort in learning the language. Um, I know that Dutch is an easy language to learn, but if you go, let's say, to Spain or to Italy or to Portugal or Germany, then things get difficult in terms of finding a job. They don't really hire a lot of English speaking workers. So it's important that you learn the language so that life becomes much easier when you search for a job. And that is it, I would say, for today. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I think Karthik will moderate it for the both of us. If you have any personal questions, you can of course contact me later on LinkedIn. This is my ID. You can just search me on. I don't think there are a lot of other Anand Thambans in the world, but you can easily find me. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Danke, Anand. Thank you for such a wonderful talk about graduate prospects in Europe. Before we move to the questions on the YouTube chat, I have a few questions with me. Is that okay if we go through them first?
Sure, of course. Yeah. Do you need me to open my slide, or are you?
No. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So, how was your experience in Europe? Was it hard to adjust given the cultural differences and lack of ease in communication?
I think I actually found it really nice. I like Europe a lot. I like the culture. I like how everything, how the people interact. This of course varies in each country. So if you go to Germany, you find a different culture. In the Netherlands, it's quite lax. It's still strict but lax. The more south you go, things become pretty much like India. I don't. I didn't really find it difficult to adjust, but that is of course because I'm a third culture kid. I was brought up in Dubai, so I was used to a very multicultural and diverse environment. So I think for me, I found it pretty easy. But this was not the case for many of my other friends who, a lot of you actually might face the difficulty where you adjust to different times, strictness of schedule, working with a multicultural environment, because now you're not working just with Indians, but you're working with Spanish, with the Spanish person, with the German. The German's very strict in timing, and then you have a Dutch person. It's quite nice to learn a lot about the cultures. So that way it was good. But you can, of course, some people do face issues, I would say, but you will get used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear that you didn't have a hard time adjusting then. So moving on, given your experience in Europe, what would you suggest to someone who wishes to pursue a master's in a field that is similar to yours?
So the thing is, I studied energy and process technology. Um, I had different ambitions when I finished my operation, like maybe Shell or ExxonMobil, and which gives so that you get an idea and understanding of what you're getting into. It shouldn't be that you pay a really high tuition fee for 2 years and then realize, yeah, okay, this is not what I want to do. So if anyone has any particular questions with related to what I studied, you can obviously contact me personally. But my general advice would be is to do your research really well before committing to a particular course in a university.
Thank you, Anand.
I hope that answered your question, or was it not?
Yeah. The answer.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on, in today's scenario where student debt is a huge crisis, especially in the US, and higher studies is becoming, a huge financial burden. Do you think it is worth it to do a master's or a PhD?
Yeah, I would say it depends a lot on your financial situation. If you're of course taking a loan, because I know the interest rates in India are quite high. It's I think around 7 to 10%. If you will be able to repay your loan, it's not an issue. If the thing about Europe is you don't earn a lot of money. The salaries are not as high as the US. But in terms of stability, it's much better. So you don't have to pay tuition for let's say if you have kids, you don't have to pay tuition for your kids. The social security is good, and stuff like that. You get unemployment benefits. even if you're not a citizen of any European country, you still get unemployment benefits, or owing to the fact that you have worked there for a particular period of time. So if you have to take a loan to study, I would suggest that don't really rush into it. Maybe you can work for a few years, save up some money, and then do it. But I do have a lot of friends actually who are studying on a loan, student loan, and you will be able to save some money and repay your loan back, at least within 5 to 6 years. So I think it's tuition in Europe is more cheaper than the US, I would say. So that way, and if you and especially in Germany, if you learn the German language, you can yeah, you can pretty much get it free, I would say. And there are some courses which are quite cheap as well. So that's something to look into. It's a better alternative than going to the US, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Lastly, what advice would you give to a first-year student who has just joined an ITK?
Yeah, I wouldn't really worry about my master's in your first year, because anyone who comes into first year, your ambitions keep changing throughout the year. You don't really know what you want to do. I would just say enjoy your college life. Uh, don't uh, still, I mean, don't enjoy it to the point where you just lose your interest in your studies and your courses, and it's just pure fun. Do have some interest in what you want to do. Join some particular club, pick up some uh, hobby. I mean, a technical hobby. If you're a mechanical engineer, and you learn new things. Because at least when I was doing my bachelor's, I feel like I could have learned a lot of new things. I could have learned a lot of Python programming, data analytics, machine learning. Because this is of course going to be a bubble in a few years, but it's really nice to learn these things and gain a lot of new skills. You can learn CFD coding and a lot of other things which actually valued by the people who hire, I mean, the employers in the Netherlands, because they were actually impressed by the fact that my resume was good compared to an average Dutch person. And that actually gave me an edge over the other people. So it's important that you do take the time to learn these things. You have to invest a lot in yourself. But as a first year student, you don't really have to blow your brains over it. You just take it slow, but make sure that your grades don't go down. Don't make the mistake of being too lax. Try to keep your CGPA at least above 7.5 or 8, I would say.
Thank you, Anand. I think a lot of first years who are listening to us right now must have felt a huge burden ease off the shoulders.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the questions from the YouTube live chat.
Sure.
Vehan Doshi asks if you could compare opportunities both compared to Europe.
I'm sorry, Karthik. I think I didn't hear you properly. My internet connection just went off. Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, sure. Vehan Doshi asks if you could compare opportunities post-masters between Europe and US. We have always heard of US being more of an open community as compared to Europe.
Yes, I would say there is a lot of discrimination in the US. Especially they usually prefer a lot of American students. They have a lot of more opportunities for American students. uh, US is really good if you have a computer science background or you have electronics background, because a lot of my friends who have this, they easily find jobs. A lot of them got jobs quite easily in the big firms. But for mechanical engineering, for aerospace, for chemical, it's quite bleak, I would say, because they usually don't have because you need to be a sponsor, you need to be an H-1B sponsor, and the whole sponsoring situation in the US is not really favorable for Indians, at least I would say. Uh, but in Europe, you don't really have that obstacle. They don't really have an issue sponsoring you or providing you with a work visa. So in terms of openness, I found the Netherlands to be quite fine. If you are okay with adjusting with the culture, then it's quite okay. America has this advantage that it doesn't have a specific culture. It's quite multicultural in its own way. In some cases, yes. If I would say that if you have an electronics or a comp science background, then go to the US. You can easily make a lot of money and you can explore more things. But in terms of mechanical engineering, at least what I heard from the students studying there, uh, I've talked to a lot of people and they really didn't. They just suggested I go to an IIT or IIM instead, IIT or ISC instead for masters. It would be better off. I think get better opportunities in India. So yeah, I think in Europe you have opportunities and things are coming up. But I would restrict this only maybe to Germany and the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, and these countries.
All right. Thank you, Anand. Moving on, Chandravaran says that he was looking for courses offered. When he was looking for courses offered, he noticed that prerequisites in the likes of robotics require mechanical engineering in BTech. Are they adamant about this prerequisite, or can projects in the field of mechanical engineering compensate for this?
So I actually do have a friend who applied for systems and control in TU Delft, but he had a mechanical engineering background, and his application was rejected because he did not have experience. In some cases, yes, I would say it is possible, um, but it actually depends on the admissions committee. You would have to get in touch with the committee and ask them. You can always email them and ask them, or just give them a call and say, hey, I don't have a background in mechanical engineering, but I have so and so and so. I have done so in projects. How does that work? If your resume is quite attractive enough, then they might just consider you. But this is always something you have to ask the admissions committee. It can't always be said that in an ideal case, no, you would face difficulties, because it's funny, because for robotics they would usually ask you to have a degree in mechanical or electrical or computer sciences and stuff like that. But it's always worth a shot, I would say. You could just get in touch with the admissions committee, and they should be able to help you out.
Yeah, very true. There's no harm in trying anyway.
No, yeah.
Samit Hegde asks if it is better to do masters in Europe and foreign countries only with the aim of research, work, and then settling down there. Do holding these degrees have better prospects back in India?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting question. You can, of course, go and study in do your masters in Europe or the US or wherever it is, just for the purpose of getting education and come back to India, because the level of education and the exposure you have is quite different to what it is in India. If I don't know how many of you have taken up. If you have taken MTech courses or anything in an ITK, you will get an idea of how courses are. So there is added value. Companies do appreciate the fact that you have a master's abroad. How much of I don't know how much of an extra salary you would get, but there is obviously an added value and benefit, because ultimately you can contribute towards your country, of the company in your country, with the skills that you gained. That does add value. And if I think even if you apply for positions in DRDO or any of these government organizations, they also do appreciate the fact that you have a master's degree abroad, and you can actually get a position quite easily compared to someone with a degree in IIT or from just a bachelor's degree. So a master's degree does add some value if you want to come back as well. But it's maybe preferable you stay do your master's, work for 3-4 years, and just go back. A lot of people do that. But the general experience is when someone goes to Europe, they just get in the comfort zone, and many of them don't want to come out. So that's also something to look into.
Moving on, Naman Agarwal asks if there was a specific reason you decided to pursue PDEng in TU Eindhoven over TU Delft, considering that you had already done your master's at Delft.
Yeah, good question. So each of the universities have specific PDEng programs. TU Delft has only 3 of them. That is PDEng in product and process design, bioprocess engineering, and environmental science, I think. So it's very chemical engineering related. TU Eindhoven, on the other hand, has many more disciplines for PDEng. You have smart buildings in cities, you have mechatronics, automated systems, automobile systems, healthcare, data science, clinical technology, and a lot of other stuff. And U20 has for energy process technology. So how the PDEng program in the Netherlands is designed is that each university takes care of a particular specialization. So if you want to do something in chemical engineering, you can go to TU Delft. If you want to study automobile and data analytics, you can come to TU Eindhoven. If you want to do something in energy technology, then you have to go to TU20. So it differs. Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Darren Fernandez asks what students at TU Delft do in their free time, and if you could tell us more about
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the last sentence? I think I lost it through the internet.
all right, I'll repeat the question. Darren Fernandez asks what students at TU Delft do in their free time, and if you could tell us more about student teams at TU Delft.
Okay. I can know why Darren is quite interested in this. Students in TU Delft actually live a very sad life. I'm sorry because I'm actually giving a negative review. But TU Delft is quite a demanding university. It's not like universities in the US where well, I won't say they are easy, but it's much more easier to get to do courses and get credits. TU Delft is quite demanding because on an
Live streaming is on.
Yeah, I think we are on again.
perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, courses in TU Delft, master students actually they on an average they take more than 2 years. That's because of the courses are quite rigorous in terms of academics. You can actually find time to join clubs. I do know a lot of people who have joined clubs and they still manage to graduate on time, or maybe just 2 or 3 months later. You do have a lot of student teams to join. You have hydrogen car racing, solar car racing, submarines, and yeah, it's a lot. It's quite cool actually. If I was doing my bachelor's in TU Delft, I would really enjoy it. So if you look into the website at TU Delft, you can see the student teams. They do have a lot. They even have a Hyperloop team. So it's pretty cool. I would say it's quite nice. You can make your own time. You can extend your masters for maybe a few. A lot of students do that. They dedicate 1 year just to joining a student team and doing extracurricular activities. But you can always take smaller roles and manage it along with your studies, as long as you don't really have a hectic semester or quarter, I would say. So, but most of us have just try to finish off a master's as soon as possible. So it depends on how you want to. It's quite flexible how you want your master's to be.
Thank you for asking that question, Darren. So I think there's one more question. Yeah, how much money does it take for pursuing a master's in Europe?
Yeah, I would say around 44,000 euros for 2 years, and this includes your tuition and your food and your stay and all of that. This was for the Netherlands. It could be cheaper in Germany. It's much cheaper in Germany. You have more incentives from the government from Germany, so it's cheaper in Germany. It could be cheaper in Spain and Italy. So around 44,000 euros, I would say. Yeah, I think in the US it's much more for 2 years. But yeah, that's pretty much how much what I paid. But if you can graduate earlier, then you save some money. If you graduate later, then it adds up to your cost. So all of these things help. And internships and master thesis also do provide some stipends, like around 500 to 600 euros a month. So that could cover some costs for yourself, I would say. That's how I did, at least for my second year. The later part of my first year and the whole of my second year, I was given a stipend, so that helped. But around that much, I would say 45,000 euros.
Thank you so much, Anand.
Yeah.
I think that wraps up the questions from the live chat. So
Perfect.
that brings us that brings us to the end of today's talk.
Awesome.
On behalf of
Perfect.
on behalf of IEEE NITK, I would like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and co-hosting this talk for the benefit of students from NITK. Once again,
Definitely.
a big thank you to you.
Thank you so much, Karthik. And I really hope this really helps some of the students. And if any of you have any questions, please do send a message on LinkedIn. I might get a lot of connection requests, but please just shoot a message and I'll be really happy to help out. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. To everyone who joined us on the live stream, we hope you had an insightful interaction and got all your doubts clear. Thank you so much for attending. Keep in mind, IEEE Piston's Enkindle series has not yet ended. Tune in tomorrow for our last talk of the series. Thank you.